Welcome to Mississauga, Ontario. Welcome to another Hudson's Bay. It's the fourth one we're filming during the closing sale. Now there's the sign. Now we're up on a parking ramp because it's kind of like a downtown store, but there's the entrance. Let's go inside and let's go check this store out. Hello everybody, and like I mentioned, welcome to Mississauga, Ontario, and welcome to another Hudson's Bay. Now, something about this Hudson's Bay too, even though this is technically in a mall, I consider this more like a downtown store. As you literally come in right from the city and you boom see the Hudson's Bay and there's a parking garage and everything. This Hudson's Bay was very fancy looking when I was here. It kind of gives me vibes of what a department store used to be here in the States, but obviously, we don't have too many of those left. And as for Hudson's Bay, as of June 1st, they are permanently all closed, which is just sad, to lose a 350-year-old department store, like I mentioned in the first Hudson's Bay, video, is not easy, and it's quite sad. And for a lot of these people, it's like the last great department store that Canada has. As Canada didn't have as many as the United States. I mean, they had really this one. They had, of course, Sears. They had Simpsons, and those are both gone. So, I mean, there isn't too much variety. There's a couple that still exist, but this was like the last true chain of department stores left in Canada. So for that, it's kind of sad. But I'm grateful that I made it to 4 of these, so at least, you guys can see as many as you can. I couldn't make it to all of them, obviously, but I try to go to as many as I can that were somewhat close to me. As many of you know, I do live right near the Canadian border, so that does help. But yeah, and for these buildings, we'll see what happens to these buildings. I mean, Canada's usually pretty good at filling things compared to the States. You don't see too many, big buildings empty. I mean, most of the Sears Canadas that I've seen that were Sears Canadas have been filled. So I do have confidence that they will fill this someday, but we'll see. Only time will tell. But for my friends from Canada, or for any of the people in the States who visited their stores, what do you think of the Hudson's Bay Company? What were your thoughts of it? I know many people here in the States that remember that they used to own the Lord and Taylor chain, and they pretty much ran that chain to the ground. But anybody, that knew truly a Hudson's Bay store, and what were your thoughts about it? Were there good memories? Were there bad memories? I would love to hear what everybody has to say. For me, I never had any bad experiences here. Well, I kind of had the one with the baskets, but whatever, it is what it is. But at least I was thankful for everything here, for what it did have. And by the way, guys, if I didn't mention too, this was a 3-story store, which is pretty rare, to have a 3-story department store anymore. But it was pretty cool. Sadly it was empty when I was here, but I bet when it was here at the end, it was probably even more emptier. But in any event, here, I am going to sign off in a minute here, put music the rest of the video. If you guys do enjoy, you all know the drill. Make sure to hit like, comment, and of course, and subscribe, and stay tuned for what I got next. I got many new videos coming, including tomorrow. I have another Rite Aid documentary coming out, and normally I don't put up 2 videos this fast, but I'm trying to get my backlog up, as I got a huge backlog, and I like to do 3 videos a week, so that also is part of it too. But, like I mentioned before, stay tuned for what I have next. I'm also going to get more of my Cincinnati videos up as well. But for now, I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye, guys. Alright guys, and here's the lower mall, the upper mall entrance. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to hit like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye, guys.